Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
Friends, and thank you again for joining us in another live broadcast. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio. And it's always a great pleasure and honor to be with you in these evenings for discussion and introspection. I'm joined today by my good friend Brett Lee Thomas, who is also an author and a webmaster, and he has been covering the Way of Cain and Mystery Babylon for a very long time. Has been led to similar discernment in regard to Cain and the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And so we always have very intriguing discussions revealing the truth of this topic and how it unlocks so much that is hidden and still misunderstood within Scripture. I believe that the Messiah even alluded to this knowledge as being one of those secrets kept since the foundation of the world in Matthew chapter 13. But Brett, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing very good, brother. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm really blessed and fortunate. This year has been a year of healing for me, um, and so I'm really grateful. It's been a beautiful year, especially with all that we had gone through as a world and as a nation in dealing with all the COVID and all the hype and all the, with the pandemic and all that going on. It's nice to be back to at least a semblance of normality. I do pray for the parts of the world that are going through the wars and rumors of wars and, the earthquakes and pestilences and all of that. But yeah, life is good here. I've been busy and productive, and so very grateful. Love just hanging out with my children and watching the grandkids grow. What a great blessing that is upon my life as well. So, but you, brother, I know you've been also busy and doing a lot of things. So, uh, keep us up on what you've been writing and your research, and also your website, where people go to find and check out your work, and talk about your latest projects and some of the things that you'll be releasing soon.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, I wanted to say thank you for having me on. And I wanted to say that it's so interesting that we always, when we hear about the news, it always takes me back to that prophecy about you will hear of wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes and famines. It's so interesting because it seems like almost a daily thing, doesn't it? When you said that, right. I had to kind of comment on that.
Certainly. It is a daily thing now, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, I've been doing okay, and you're feeling better, right? I know you were a little bit under the weather there a little bit ago, but you're feeling okay now, back to normal?
Yeah, I'm really good. I just have to be careful with not overdoing it. But it's a great blessing to be able to share and to let new audiences and new people and new contacts to inform them on the things that I've been working on, and I'm sure it's the same for you. So, but I do have to be careful not to overextend myself, just because my voice doesn't allow me to do the endless hours of broadcasting that I used to. And so, limitations, the being old now and gaining in age, I have to just slow down a little bit. But I think that's a lesson to be learned and one to be um, adhering to as well, and that I'll do better once I learn to listen to my body and the things that I need to do to take care of myself as well.
Yeah, it's very important. You got to listen to your body because it will tell
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
when it's had enough. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Or when to slow down a little. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Things have slowed a little bit. I lost my mother here.
Oh
About a month
man, I'm
ago.
sorry to hear that, brother.
Yeah. Thank you. It put a little dent in the writing and the progression of that, but it's getting back now again. It's just like you said, there was a lot of things going on in 2022, and it'll be nice to get back to normalcy a little bit, normal. Yeah, and like I said, my name is Brett Thomas, and I have 2 volumes out now. They're on Zen's website and bookstore, Sacred Word Publishing .com, and I'm working on another one. And we're currently working through the second part of the first volume, which is called The Way of Cain, and that book, I said, that's the book I wrote about 10 years ago. I had it in the works for a while, and it gets into more of the cultural elements that we find way back in the past, way back in the first 10 or 11 chapters of Genesis, and how Jesus said how a lot of the things that went on back then will compare to today, and it does. And I've did a lot of research and post-biblical, a lot of different works that aren't exactly in the Bible. Like I know Zen, you do that too, and that's what makes us two of the same in a lot of ways, because we're not afraid to venture out, right?
Right.
That's important.
I think a lot of people are beginning to appreciate that as well. You know, the further that we go into this fig tree generation, and with the as far as the compilations and extra biblical material that are coming to light, people realize that there's so much, so much to read, so much to consider, and so much still coming to light. Why is it that people, just accepted in mindset that, oh, well, these are going to be the authorized renditions of the Bible, and these particular books are going to be accepted, and then everything else excluded? People are finding that mindset to be narrow and limited, and they also see that, it's the same way that the government and propaganda, the media corporations, they want you to believe a certain way and not venture out of your box, to stay sheltered and a slave to the basically the bars that they have set up and imprisoned the minds of people. They self-police and don't allow themselves to go beyond a certain limitation, and that's unfortunate. And I think a lot of people realize now that we're being lied to, and that these limitations being imposed upon us, they're not for our benefit. They are keeping people from truth and hiding things from us that people are starting to wonder about. So it's a nice thing to see.
Yeah, I think the words there are power and control. I see the government, of course, has a political agenda, but it's sad to say, but I think there's a lot of people out there that have a religious agenda, and it's a lot of the people who actually serve above us that want to be the only ones to hold the keys to the kingdom.
Right.
And if you do have, in my works, I put the Bible as something that is nothing to be compared to. I mean, obviously, it's in a field all its own. Yeah, I'm sure you agree with me on that. But
absolutely,
what's wrong with seeking these out these other sources out and using discernment to find out and help and allow God to help you figure out the answers, because the Bible gives
Right.
us a lot. Right. Bible gives us a lot, but it does not give us everything. It gives us a few quotes here and there that are very interesting, but to expand on that, how do we expand on that? Maybe researching some of these other articles in ancient texts. That's how we do it.
Exactly.
And I think the powers that be like that control, and they like that feeling of, okay, well, the parameters that we set in this Bible leaves us to be the ones to give the interpretations to you, not you
Right.
figuring it for yourself.
Exactly.
I totally agree with you. And I think I hope people will more and more be kind of despondent about that and thinking, well, why can't we look at something? Why do we always have to go through you to
Right.
find out some of these answers?
Absolutely. And, even with the life of Messiah, that even the childhood and the youth and the infancy of the Savior Messiah, all that has been removed from the gospel account. Even the story, the majority story of the uniqueness of Miriam, his mother, all that has also been removed. And yet those documents, those ancient manuscripts about the specialty of, the uniqueness and the how Mary and also Christ, that they were unique, all that's been lost and excluded from the gospel accounts. There is a little mention, of both, but in regard to the fullness of the story, there's only one account of Christ in the gospel narratives when he was 13 years old and had left, and when he was found at the temple doing his father's business. But most people don't know of anything else in connection to how he was born with providence, and he didn't just receive the power and the blessing of being God incarnate in the flesh form when he was baptized in the River Jordan. Everybody believes that that's when he received his powers and began his ministry, but that is so far from the truth, and you would never understand or know that unless you did study the other narratives. But that's just one example, as to why people should study and look into the extra biblical narratives. But and then another one that comes to mind is the fallen angels and the giants, how that has also been removed from majority consideration. And that is a very important topic, especially since we deal now, with the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, as Paul said, but, against these powers. And unless you understand that, as what Genesis is alluding to in chapter 6, you're not going to understand the fullness of this story either.
You don't know who you are or what you're fighting unless you don't, if you don't know who your enemy is.
Right.
And what they have been through all throughout history.
Right. That's so important. I mean, because we are in a war. Genesis tells us that we're at enmity. The seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent would be at enmity until the end of the age. Let both grow together until the time of the end. And so, very important to understand.
Right. And when we talk about seed, I mean, I don't think we're talking about figurative seed and actual seed here. I don't think the Bible actually goes there and tries to differentiate the two. When they say seed and seed, they're talking seed and seed. So, there is a physical seed of Eve, obviously. So could there be a physical seed of the serpent somewhere? Obviously, it seems very likely. Right. And you talk about,
without a doubt, it's
and you talk about yes, sir, you're right. And you talk about the tares, the wheat and the
Right.
tares. And obviously, there we go. It's those are similar groups again. They're not one is figuratively and spiritually corrupt,
Right.
etc., and one is a person. No, they're two distinct species of plant that are growing together. So if you apply that to the human existence and the genome, it's the same thing. There's two different types of people out there, or whether you whether you want to, and again, who are the people that are trying to discourage us from understanding this?
Understanding this, exactly.
It's the same people are trying to tell us, oh, don't look at those other extra biblical accounts or texts because it's not the Bible and this and that. Okay, again, right. It's not the Bible, but I want to know exactly and try to figure out what the Bible actually means and says, and anything that might be complementary that would actually help us. What's wrong with that?
Exactly. And again, another passage that verifies as to what you were speaking about. It tells us in Isaiah chapter 14 that Lucifer, the son of the morning, that he is and has, it's what's called netzer, that he is an abominable branch. And what that is referring to is that his children, the seed of the evildoers, as is mentioned in that chapter in those verses, that his children are part of the branch of what is the family tree of humanity. And that even the family tree of humanity, there's a reason why we have those symbolisms, those metaphors connected. And his being called an abominable branch, and that his children are called the seed of the evildoers. It's because they do exist within the world, and they are the ones that are truly behind the evil that is so organized and as far as being the enemy, the arch nemesis of humanity. If you don't understand the war, you're never going to understand who the enemy is and how they are conducting this war, which is again very important, critical to understand.
Right. What verses are those again, Zen?
Isaiah chapter 14, which I think it would be actually good to read them, and it's the one that everybody is familiar with regard to Lucifer declaring, "I will ascend above the stars of God. I will."
Oh, okay, right.
Well, yeah, let me pull it up. But yeah, because a lot of people don't even realize this. They don't see it, even though they've read it so many times. They don't understand its connections to this particular topic. So I'll bring it up.
Yeah, there's so much in the Bible that you can connect very easily if you only open that part of up in your mind to accept that part or think about that part.
Right. All right. So yeah, here in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the height of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, everyone in his own house. but thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword that go down to the stones of the pit as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord. So, here again, Yahuwah, in the same way that Christ said in Matthew chapter 13 with the parable of the kingdom, let both the wheat and the tares grow together till the time of the end. Mm-hmm. And he tells us that the enemy snuck into the garden and sowed the tares. Here, the Father is telling us the same thing, that Lucifer, the son of the morning, that he is an abominable branch and that his children are the seed of the evildoers. And so they are the seed of the serpent. They are the enemy of humanity. And he says, in the same way that Christ said that at the end of the age, he would send the angels out as reapers to gather the tares for burning and the wheat for preservation. In the same way, the Father here says, prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers. And we know their fathers are the assassins of the prophets, that mm-hmm. do not rise nor possess the land nor fill the face of the world with cities, because they are evil and they, kill the messengers. And so, he has to wage war against them just to allow us to live in peace and harmony, and that at the end of the age, of course, with the millennial kingdom, that will enter into an eternal age of rest and peace.
Sure sounds like living human beings to me, or at least on the same level.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, they are the children of perdition, the sons of Belial.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, brother, I don't want to take up the whole show, even though all this is so important. And of course, this is a focus of both of our work and effort. But tell me, what have you been studying and examining of late, and finding anything of interest? And then, of course, we can go back into the study and the research that you've been doing and begin going through it again.
Yeah, I had to put it on hiatus a little bit, like I said, for a couple months here. So I haven't really been into anything new.
Yeah.
It just seems that every day, though, I am earnestly looking for anything new that points us to something that you and I already know and we write about. And it's still, I'm saving it for another time, but every day it almost seems like we're seeing something that is relevant and that is pointing us towards the end times, that as we believe that it's going to come out. So, things are happening. They're happening very fast in education and in the media and in the way that everything is being pushed. It's obvious, it's pushing towards the Antichrist and pushing towards something negative, which is not of God. It's kind of scary. So that's where I've been lately on that. I really haven't been too much, but I'm getting back into it and I'm getting back with the writings. But the next part of our conversation will probably be more of the ancient Cainites and their parallel existence and how much it relates to today, because that's another thing I wanted to get into. That would be next, and that's pretty interesting, because we talk about a lot of things that we take for granted today, and we don't really understand that a lot of it originated with the sons of Cain. Not to say that it's evil per se or outright, but it can be used for evil purposes. And it's interesting once we really get into it. The Bible will give us a few tidbits, especially in early Genesis. They'll tell us about a few sons of Cain, and and talk about it, Jabal and etc. But it won't really get into it too much and to wide significance. It's for us to look for and to decipher and try to figure out what the reason why it was mentioned. And I believe, again, in the books, I have hopefully come up with a lot of different answers up to why. And an interesting part about it is it does start to parallel today. Because again, when Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, we start to see it. And that's my answer right there.
Right. Yeah, it's again, it's very important to consider because they are the enemy, and they are the ones that we are at war with, and they are the ones that are ruling and in control of the world. The synagogue of Satan, those who say they are Jews but are not. This is, again, Christ said of the children of Cain, those who had killed Abel to Zacharias and had murdered the prophets and assassinated their fathers. These are, again, the ones that killed, the person that killed Abel was Cain. So without a doubt, it's linking this bloodline, the Pharisees. Ye are of your father, the devil.
Right.
So it's connecting them to the serpent. And it says in John, 1 John chapter 1, chapter 3, verse 12, that Cain is of the wicked one, and that word being descendant, prodigy, children, a seed of, and so, a son of. And so these are bloodlines. These
Right.
are physical bloodlines, lineages. And that's important to understand because even the royals, they know that they are connected to, and they trace their connection to Charlemagne and all these presidents being of one particular family. And yeah, I know when you go back, that we're all connected in some manner. But again, there is the reason why Cain is excluded from Messiah's bloodline. You don't find Cain listed in the genealogy of Christ in Luke chapter 3. And so, yeah, even though Adam and Eve are, the parents of the majority of what are the sons of Adam, the children of Cain, Eve being the mother of all the living, she is our connection. But the fathers are, the fraternal twins. There's a different paternal lineage between Adam and the wicked one. And so this has to be understood in order to really understand the Bible in its fullness. And the reason why, the genealogical lists were kept and detailed.
Absolutely.
Going back to, even the beginning. Because we see in Genesis chapter 4, we have the children of Cain mentioned. And then the beginning of Genesis chapter 5 with Sheth, because Abel was murdered by his half-brother Cain, that's where Adam and his genealogy are cited.
It always makes me more confident in what I speak and what I write about and get into when I always look at those verses when Jesus actually points to the Pharisees and says, "You're of your father, the wicked one, the devil." And basically he says, he was a murderer from the beginning. I mean, those two phrases just link Cain without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, so it's undeniable. And again, it just links him there, and it's just like, okay, who else could he be talking about? The first murderer.
There's no one else that can fulfill that role.
And as you said in 1 John, where he's of the wicked one, and that of is actually referring to a genome or a seed line. And again, that's what I was saying earlier about the whole Bible in many different parts of it talk about this possibility and this conclusion that Zen and I hold in it. And if you don't have any background or not trying to see that part of it or understand it, it won't make any sense. But once you throw this extra element in there, everything seems to make sense.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you know, there's a passage, and I'm not going to go into it, but there's a verse from the Gospel of Philip that also talks about this, and how, you know, it's only it can only be understood this way because it speaks about Satan, Lucifer, being a created being, and how his children were not natural and were hybrid, and because of that, Cain was of the wicked one, and it speaks about him being directly a son of the serpent, and that before murder came about, adultery happened. And so it tells us that Eve, you know, was an adulteress. She was beguiled by the serpent. She was impregnated with Cain. And it was his birth that led to the murder of Abel, which is, you know, again, the enmity and the war between the bloodlines. But yes, let's go into the things that you want to talk about, because the later generations and the later genealogies are also very important to the story, and not a lot of people understand that. So
right,
let's
go into a little bit of early Genesis, and we're going to talk because Genesis does talk a little bit about the sons of Cain and the descendants of Cain. And again, if you were just reading it passively and without wanting to dig deeper, you'll see a few people like Namad and Jabal. You wonder, like, okay, well, that's fine and dandy. What does that mean to me? And what does that mean to the present day? And when Jesus said that the days of Noah will parallel the days of today, does that mean anything? And again, once you do a little bit of deeper research and into these extra biblical accounts, you will see some things that actually point to the reasons why the Bible may have brought up these characters and what they mean today. So let's get into it a little bit about the Cainites and their mark on this world, so to say. One of the biggest ones we have in Genesis 4:18, we talk about a few descendants, but Lamech is one of the biggest ones, okay? And why was he so important? There's a little bit on him. Why was he so important? First of all, people who really kind of know the story of him know that he took 2 wives, okay? Ada and Zillah, I think the name
is
Ada and Zillah, right? And again, the Bible just mentions it, but it doesn't get into it in great detail of why. And you look in the book of Jasher and other accounts, and you see more of the story, which is a little bit interesting. And from what I found, I think I've mentioned this in the previous broadcast, but Lamech did not like Enoch, and Enoch was that great prophet of God that was taken away into heaven before he even died. So obviously he was a very, very prominent figure of the time. But Lamech was supposedly, according to one account, out to take him out or to kill him, and chased down him and his brother and killed his brother and took the wives of Enoch and his brother, and that was Ada and Zillah, which again sounds interesting, and it's a possibility, and it sounds like something like this Lamech would do. I don't know if you've heard that account, Zen. Have you ever heard of that?
Wow. No, but
I think it comes out of the Armenian Apocrypha relating to Adam and Eve, and Michael E. Stone was the translator. But yeah, that was the source I found that out of.
That's amazing.
It's interesting because, like, the deeper you dig, that's one thing I really tried to do in these volumes, is to find those little bits of information that would fill the gaps, and you would wonder why. Why would this happen? Why did he take these wives, for example? It makes sense now. I'm not saying everything is totally what, but it's interesting the way some of these things actually translate or interpret what happened. So, it would be natural, though, if you think he really does not like somebody so much that he would try to kill them and take their wives and just have them as his own, just to spite Enoch. It makes sense. But as we dig,
let me comment here real quick,
go for it.
because I find that absolutely fascinating, and the reason I say this is because in the writings of Abraham, it makes mention of Lamech as being the chief Mahan of what are these secret combinations. And it's his secret society, the Freemasons, and the Order of the Dragon, the Brotherhood of the Snake in ancient times, that he ruled over. And he was jealous of Enoch and the sons of Cain. They've been excluded from the priesthood, so that's why they were never allowed to, and that's why Ham stole the garments of power, is because they, were excluded and they could not be initiated into the Melchizedek order, but they had their own thing going on with the serpent. And so, absolutely. Yes, Enoch was a enemy of Lamech, who was, said to be this master Mahan, and that he had the knowledge of all these secret combinations, which are, spellcraft and the things that they're involved in with black magic and sorcery and things of that nature. So, yeah, fascinating, very interesting. And yeah, I'm gonna check that out because I don't remember that, but I'm sure I've read that manuscript. But yeah, that is awesome. And I love learning something new. Whenever somebody mentions something that I don't know, I'm like, wow, that's so cool. And
isn't it something?
I definitely want to check it out.
Yeah, it's that little tweak of, oh wow, okay, that connects the dots. That's okay. I see how that could be. And what I'm saying here, so much of this is just logic. It's just, okay, it's logically, like you said, okay, a lot of the Cainites were upset because they couldn't hold the priesthood. Okay, obviously that makes sense for them to hate Enoch and everybody on God's side and the Sethites. It just makes sense for them to persecute them and act like they want to do something harmful. These things just make too much sense if you ask me.
Right.
Yeah, Zen, that was Armenian Apocrypha relating to Adam and Eve. That's the name of the book, okay?
Okay, cool, okay. Thanks.
Sure. And anyhow, what I was saying is, it's a lot of this stuff. I was saying it connects the dots, and it just makes the story so much better. As we go into a little bit more here, I'm going to go into the book of Jasher, which is something that has a lot about these two women that he married. And it's interesting because we talk a little bit about actually where abortion started.
Right.
And I'm
because one was kept for pleasure, and the other was kept to bear children.
Right. And here in Jasher 2:20, it says, and some of the sons of men caused their wives to drink a draught that would render them barren, in order that they might retain their figures, and whereby their beautiful appearance might not fade.
Exactly.
And when the sons of men caused some of their wives to drink, Zillah drank with them. So Zillah basically was the one that was designated as the, sugar woman, or the woman that, had the nice figure for Lamech. And Ada was the one to bear the children. And that's pretty much what he changed them into. So, again, it's the way the Cainites kind of manipulated things for their own, like you said, it was for their own use, and they were starting to have their own religion. again, too. They had that paganism, and they had the serpent teaching them, and they had the fallen angels, the terrestrial angels, getting all this knowledge for them. So the competition was already going at this time.
Yes, and that's why they also kept multiple wives, because one to breed with and the other to have pleasure with. And so, yeah.
So again, according to them, there was nothing wrong. Now we go into actual Genesis 4:20, and we talk about Ada, because she's the one that was bearing the children. And we go, and Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of such that as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. So again, one I think that is very important here is Jubal, for the parallel between them and today, because he was one of the earliest inventors of musical instruments, called the father of musicians even. Now, we think about what turns society a certain way, and then what will be turning the culture a certain way better than music itself, if we think about it. The music is the thing that is thrown out there first, and if you want to change a culture, watch who's performing the type of music, what the artists are, and what they're singing, and etc. And then, honestly, I've seen over my years, I've seen the switch in culture into what they're actually pushing. And there we go.
Well, whenever you want to throw a party, I mean, what do you have, first and foremost? I mean, to lead the celebration, but a band, somebody that's going to play music, or that's going to set the mood. And we know how people get when they congregate with music, and then they also have drugs and alcohol involved. I mean, it gets out of control, out of hand, and people allow their inhibitions to just fall away because they want to, be with the mood or be with the moment, and they will allow those kind of experiences to lead them where they otherwise would never go, otherwise.
The opposite of what God might want for you. Isn't that interesting how following these ways seems to almost always turn somebody in the opposite direction. It's just
exactly.
And Jubal was also actually known for helping to ferment wine for the first time, according to one of my sources too. Exactly, so there you go. Like Zen, you said, the perfect combination. We got that. So again, there we go. We got a party. Okay. But it goes even deeper than that. It wasn't just because people could say, oh, well, I mean, a couple drinks are good to relax you on a night, and etc. But, again, what if it's starting to take excessive routes or take it in the wrong direction? It can really take you away from God. Now, as we get a little deeper, we also hear about Tubal-cain in the Bible. Okay. Tubal-cain is basically another. Okay, let me get into the backstory a little bit before I get into Tubal-cain. Zillah was the one that was giving the abortion medicine. I think it was hemlock. I think what they described it as hemlock was one of the herbs that they were using. And for a long while, she wasn't to have any kids. But lo and behold, near the very end, when she was getting old, she did have kids. And God opened her womb, and she had Tubal-cain. Okay. And basically, that's in Genesis 4:22, and Zillah bore Tubal-cain, the instructor of every artificial in brass and iron. Now, if you look into Tubal-cain, it sounds good that actually she had a son, which is is good for her, etc. But Tubal-cain was right in the den of lions there, and he didn't exactly turn out right either. He from again, the research shows that Cain was actually one of the ones who started up working with making ironworking, smithery, etc. But Tubal-cain actually was the one that, I guess the word Tubal-cain actually means the perfection of Cain. So he actually perfected Cain's work. and pushed it a little bit farther. And he was helping to, with the help of the serpent, of course, and then any of the other terrestrial angels around, helping to devise weapons and things to use against other people around and to conquer other people. So there you go. Now you not only have the dancing, you not only have the music, you have weapons that are starting to be made to be used against other people, probably
Right.
those of God.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the Cainites and the children of Cain, they organized themselves in a way that they were also bandits, and they would wage war against the children of Adam because they did not have weapons and they were not murderers. They were not thieves and liars and following all the abominable, wicked ways of those that the children of Cain practiced and were involved in. So, yeah, they were an easy target.
Right, they were tent dwellers for the most part. I mean, they God wanted them just to dwell in tents. They didn't want them to dwell in cities. And
Right.
of course, Cain was the one who did the opposite and said, no, they took them all the cities. And let's say, yeah, let's build all these cities like Babylon.
Right. Yes. Yeah, and they established weights and measures, and they also were the ones that set up brothels and taverns, and also places, like hotels and places of rest for on the trade routes, and
Carnivals,
so,
etc.
all
We'll
that.
get into that. Okay, there was another little bit. Now, again, see, one thing that I've learned in this research too is when you start to leave God and leave the ways of God and start to go out on your own, what's the only other thing you have to start to believe in is something around you, things of this earth, all that the world can offer. And that's basically exactly what they did. They abandoned God, but they had to find other ways. And, when they became idle and sitting around, how shall I occupy myself in times of idleness? In music, dancing, and song. They started to look at all these things and they say, hey, yeah, they sound good. Let me just see what the world has to offer for me.
Absolutely.
Right. They acted in pride. Here's the second book of Adam and Eve, 26. They acted with pride and taught the children of Cain. These we're talking about Jubal and Tubal-cain here, because Jubal was the one who started the instruments, and Tubal-cain was the one who actually could help form these instruments. Because he was good in smithing and metalworking.
Right.
So they kind of worked. Right. So they kind of worked in conjunction. So, and the second book of Adam and Eve says they acted with pride and taught the children of Cain to commit all manner of the grossest wickedness, which they knew not. So a lot of things they didn't know before, but of course they were getting introduced by these people that are only mentioned a few times in the Bible, but now we're starting to know why and understand why, because it becomes very important to the prophecy that Jesus said about that parallel between then and today. Again, you do deeper research, you start to find out exactly who these people are and what contributions to the other side that they did. So these people did not know how to live, how to party like on the earth like they did before until they got to these people, and the fallen angels, the terrestrial angels, were helping them out, I'm sure, and the serpent when they were doing their part. But of course they're going to give a lot of credit to these people because they were the first human beings that actually stood up on a soapbox and got these things.
They allowed themselves to be led.
Right. Let's see here. There's an interesting quote here I found on a website, and it says
3 minutes, so you know.
Oh, 3 minutes? Okay, let me just say it real quick. But again, if we think about, music is not inherently evil. Just relaxing and doing, dancing is not really inherently evil either. But it just depends on the way you do it, and it depends on who or what your direction of thought goes to at this time. You know, if you're so talking about God and you're so happy, obviously it's going to go towards God, but it can also go the other way. And basically, I think the Bible says if you're not heading towards God, obviously you're going to be heading towards the other side. So just be careful what you're doing. Here's a good quote that I found on one of these websites dealing with this same issue. There's nothing wrong with a revolver, but if improperly aimed, it can become a tool of great destruction. In the same way, the innocent instruments, when combined into an orchestra, actually altered the chemical balance of the brain so it no longer functioned rationally. Wine and music is often grouped together because wine too is totally innocent, but when put into the brain, it alters a part of the mind which constructs barriers beyond which we would not ordinarily go. The quiet soloist cannot always get the job done. So again, doing one thing, listen to another little bit of music, etc. back then and today might not do it, but you start combining the things and there's issues. There could be.
Right. And there's also the particular wavelength now, of music and how it can affect things in a positive or in a satanic manner,
Absolutely.
And those are things that were little recognized, but yeah, it's not that music is inherently evil or musical instruments or anything of that nature. It's in the manner in which music is utilized to promote, that there are the two ways that you can be serving one of two masters, and that is the same way with anything, that the different things are a medium and a tool, and it's the people and their intent, their heart, that decide whether they're going to be good or evil, and
Very
whether
good.
they're going to serve good or evil. And so, yeah, we know that there's a lot of really beautiful gospel music that it worship and praises the Most High, and that can put you in that kind of a space, where you're just grateful and in gratitude and thanksgiving to the Godhead for even life and existence and being. And even we see that in the heavens that the angels are gathered daily, that they go before the Most High, and that they sing. Even Satan was said to be the director of the choir of heaven, and that he was a beautiful as far as his pipes, meaning his voice and his ability to sing and to praise, but he did not want to serve. He wanted to be like the Most High and to rule, and because of that, he fell. And so it's the same with a lot of humans. They also getting ego and wanting to become something greater than what they are, especially for any human to boast that they are God or equal to God. It's utterly ridiculous. I mean, because you can never match your maker. We are created beings. There's no way we could ever be on the level that God is, who's
Absolutely,
never born of woman and pre-existent and omnipotent and almighty. To even boast of such is just utterly ridiculous. But we are at break, and so when we return, we'll pick it up on the other side. But yeah, this is all really good stuff with regard to Lamech and the differentiation of the bloodlines. And so very important again to understand and to consider, because it is the skeleton key for unlocking the beginning of Genesis, as far as the garden and the beguilement of Eve and the enmity again, which will go until the end.
and the parallels from then to today.
We'll be right back, everyone.
On May 26 through 28, 2023, Sacred Word Revealed comes to Atlanta, Georgia.
Purpose to unveil esoteric controversies. Conflicts abound in this final generation.
After many millennia of deceptive propaganda replacing truth, that's why we must join together as a remnant to sharpen one another as iron sharpeneth iron.
To test all things and to declare together openly, the Messiah is Adonai.
Get your tickets now at sacredwordrevealed.com and join us for another exciting, rejuvenating, and challenging weekend of worship, fellowship, and discussion with the truth-seeking community.
When Justin and I found out we were having a little girl, we named her Eliana and started dreaming of what life would be like with her, where we would take her, what we would teach her, and of course, what we would read to her. One day we walked around a bookstore looking for books we might want for her and found nothing. So we started brainstorming what exactly we would want. Even from a young age, we wanted her to know and understand the heart of God and hidden truths that are in ancient biblical manuscripts like the Book of Enoch, and the idea of the Prophecy for Children series was born. Justin got hard to work and praise Yah released the Prophecy for Children series. We are grateful for the support and amazing feedback from others who have been wanting the same for their children. With our newest addition to the family, Ezra, we also added Enoch's Judgment of the Giants to this prophecy series. We're excited to keep writing books for our children to share with our truth-seeking family. To order these books today, please check out sacredwordpublishing.com/collections/children's-store.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased, as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Hello friends, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. And I want to apologize to the listening audience. For some reason, I'm not able to sit and to log into the chat room. It keeps locking up on me, and this has been going on for I think about 3 weeks now, where I'm not able to monitor the chat and to answer the questions there, and I'm not sure if it's YouTube or if it's my my computer, but that is something that I will get figured out soon. But I do want to apologize if you're asking questions there. Brett, are you monitoring the chat at all? Is it
I am looking at it, yes.
okay? And that you're not having any problems with it
No,
locking up?
they did send me a two-step verification when I tried to log in. I don't know if they may have done that to you.
Okay, no. It must be that I just got too much stuff open on my computer. Probably that would be the problem. But yeah, let us continue, brother, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. The interesting part about we've been talking about music, and we're talking about the pre-flood Cainites and some of their significances over the parallels between them and today. And it's interesting if we think about it, we don't just have music as a one and done where it's beats. Basically, somebody plays it and it goes out to the listening audience. We also have inspiration, and we also have the creating of music that doesn't come to, just out of nowhere. People have inspirations and feelings and thoughts and maybe dreams or whatever, but they get it from somewhere, and we got to think a little bit about where all this inspiration comes from and what kind of state of a person's mind is absorbing all this information, that's writing it down and putting it to music. So that's interesting. If we think about it, we got to think, okay, well, we're listening to music, but what kind of person, what is this person into? Are they getting their inspirations from for writing this? Because again, once they put it out there, it's might be just directing or trying to direct a person in a specific direction. What do you think about that, Zen? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think, and we talked about this as well, that in the book The Shepherd of Hermas, in mandate number 6, that there's an angel of righteousness and an angel of unrighteousness with both of us, and that we are constantly being tested and tempted and influenced and tried by these powers and the principalities and the angels of both good and evil. And so the different things, music and all of the things that we've been talking about previously, that can be utilized by the angels of both good and bad, they do influence and they can lead us into acting in a certain manner. And as I was talking about with regard to the to music setting a tone for concerts and partying, and for people that just allow themselves, even with in the Keber Nagas, where it talks about the watchers leaving their first estate, and when they came down, they saw that the daughters of Cain had painted themselves like harlots, and that they were basically reveling and partying and fornicating with whomever they chose. I mean, it was just a massive orgy, and it does use those words. So I'm not insinuating or telling you that this is what I believe, but this is exactly what it says was going on. And so they were definitely having a good time. And we also talked about how it is that in the first books of Adam and Eve in the primary Adamic literature, that the children of Adam were tempted, that they were and lived upon a holy mountain that was close to the angels of God, and that they were closer in proximity to, and I tend to think that, because it speaks about this, then when Adam and Eve were first cast out, they were cast out in the north, and that they lived where where we consider the Mount of the Congregation, to be, and that this was a place where the demigods, are said to now rule and to live, the Mount Olympus and all this. But initially, it's my belief that the children of Adam lived there where the Cave of Treasures is said to have been located, and they were tempted down from this holy mountain so that they abandoned, their place of habitation in much the same way as the Watchers did, that they, looking down from the mountain, they saw the children of Cain having all this fun and doing all these things that they were not yet involved in and did and knew nothing about.
They knew not, right?
Yeah, all of this, taking and indulging in pleasure, and they were using the music of all the artisans, the tambourine and the flutes, and they were making all this noisy revel, as it says also within the scriptures. And so they were just having a good time, and they were specifically trying to tempt the children of Adam to come down from their holy mountain and to join them. And it does say within the scriptures that by the time of Noah, there were 8 righteous souls remaining, and that Enoch had warned them, said, do not leave the traditions of your fathers and do not mix or involve yourself with the children of Cain. Because at that time, it was a sin, and it was considered an abomination to mix with the children of Cain, because he was considered a murderer, a liar, and a deceiver. And why would you want to involve yourself with, people like that? And
Right.
so, yeah, so, as far as the influence, we are still at the war is ongoing right now. We battle. The war in heaven is continuous within our hearts right now. Every day we have the challenges of whether we're going to indulge in sin or even act sinfully or involve ourselves in that manner. And here's the other important aspect to this, is that all of us being tempted and being in a fallen nature and being in a fallen way of being, we have evil thoughts, and those thoughts are placed into our minds by the fallen angels. And so it's very important, especially for people that are maybe not mentally sound, that are emotionally challenged, and that are depressed in manner, where they are concerned with the world and with the direction of it. It's
Right.
important that you don't identify with evil, and that you don't act upon it, and that you don't allow yourself to be influenced and led by it. Because if you do, you're going to end up in the same way that, serial killers and people that are tempted even to end their lives, because we know that the fallen ones, when they get into the mind of somebody that is having a hard time contending with life and dealing with life, that is one of the things that they repeat often, is for those people to harm themselves or to take their own lives or to harm others. And it's unfortunate because so many people now are listening and being influenced by those kind of things. And so there is a lot of that kind of action and behavior happening in the world. And it's unfortunate because a lot of innocent people are suffering and being placed in a world of sadness because of the actions of others.
Yeah, and it's interesting how much they're going after the youth, with the music. I mean,
Yes.
when you're young, the first thing you want is to follow
Without
a
a
band,
doubt,
follow
right.
an artist. And there you go. That's what's
Right.
changing the culture. That's part of
Yes.
it. Interesting
Agreed.
quote I had on this whole topic comes from the Cave of Treasures. It says Jubal and Tubal-cain made all kinds of instruments of music, and the devils went and dwelt inside them. When the
Yes.
men blew into the pipes, the devils sang inside them and sent out sounds from inside them. That's interesting. It's interesting how, okay, there you go. You have your third party there doing their dirty work, in between innocent music writing and playing. You've got something else that possibly is trying to, get some kind of resolution or agenda fulfilled there. Just interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
As we go on, we talk a little bit about how music now becomes related to idolatry, and I'm getting into Al-Tabari, which is, I think he's a Muslim historian.
Yeah, I love his work.
Yeah, he's very good. He's very good, and he's very spot on. He has a lot of great extra biblical information that, if anybody's interested. He writes, the people had agreed to do what God disapproves, committed wickedness, drinking wine, and let a preoccupation with musical instruments divert them from obedience to God. So it's interesting that, and we also have Pseudo-Philo talking about, then began the habiters of earth to make graven images and to worship him. Right after Tubal-cain is showing the men arts in lead and tin and copper and in silver and gold. So we get these times with Tubal-cain, and we get these times with Jubal, and all of a sudden all the floodgates are being opened, and all of these other thoughts and all of these other ways of the world are starting to penetrate, which we notice. It just happens that way. And it's just interesting how, again, especially like in the 60s on, we get all this influx of all these different cultures and things that nothing wrong, but I'm talking about the paganism that's inside of them that starts to influence people away from God again, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. I wanted to make mention also, I had mentioned that Lamech was part of, it was known to be a master Mahan. I looked up that particular passage, so I want to read it and share it with you, because it also shows how he was a murderer and not just involved with, it would be the Brotherhood of the Serpent or the Order of the Dragon.
When you say master Mason, would that be a master mason from olden time?
It says Mahan. And so a Mahan, I guess, is a magician. I'm not sure. Maybe you can look it up and then tell us after I read this. Mahan is what it is. But all right, let me read this to you guys and ladies and everybody out there. All right, it says, and this is from the writings of Abraham. Lamech, being master Mahan at that time, found Irid sitting in his garden with Joram, the young son of Irid, and he slew him. Thus Lamech slew Irid for the sake of the oath of the secret combination, and he slew Irid's son with him. But Tubal-cain, the son of Lamech, had followed him, and viewed his evil deed which he had committed, and he revealed it unto his mother Zillah, and she unto her sister Ada. Wherefore Ada and Zillah confronted Lamech with his evil, and cursed him in the name of the Lord for having slain Irid, who had repented of his wickedness from among the sons of men. And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech shall be 70 and sevenfold. Lamech's wives therefore feared to confront him further, but Lamech repented not of his evil deeds, and finding his son Tubal-cain, at prayer he slew him for having revealed his murders. And when Ada and Zillah, the wives of Lamech, learned of this, they took their remaining sons and daughters, and went unto their father Canaan's city, and revealed the remainder of the secrets of this evil combination among the sons of Adam. Thus did Nama come to dwell among the sons of Adam, and she grew up before the Lord. In righteousness was known for her tender care toward the sick and the unfortunate. Nevertheless, she had not husband because she was of the forbidden race, the children of Cain.
Yeah, but we know who she took as a husband. We kind of could figure, right?
Yeah, well, let me read just a little bit more of this because this talks about how, she was spared and that she was appointed unto Noah so that the seed of Cain could actually survive the flood, which is an interesting part of the story that most people do not know about. But it says this. Yeah. When the word of the Lord came unto Noah, saying, Take unto thyself Naamah, the daughter of Lamech, who dwelleth here in the city of thy fathers, for she hath been faithful to my gospel. Wherefore I shall preserve through her the seed of Cain through the flood. Noah went unto his father Methuselah. Methuselah inquired of the Lord, and returned this word unto his son Lamech. Verily, thus saith the Lord, my handmaiden Naamah have I given unto my son Noah, that the seed of Cain might be preserved through the great flood which I will send upon the earth. Wherefore, let not my son Noah fear to take her to wife, for in so doing he shall be blessed, for through him will come all nations. Wherefore, say unto him, Noah, my son, I have looked upon the evils of the sons of men, which have come up before me, for they have corrupted the whole earth, save only this city in which thou dwellest. Therefore I will send in the floods upon the earth, but thou and thy seed will I preserve through the flood, for I will send mine angels to instruct thee in the building of an ark wherein ye shall be saved. So I'll stop right there. But yeah, this again, these are things that are not taught by the mainstream nor considered, and they specifically tell us that Naamah being listed there as the sister of Tubal-cain, the children of Lamech, by Zillah, because she was not supposed to bear them as children, but she was fortunate and was allowed to become pregnant and bore these two children, and she gave joy and delight because of that. But they are the children of Cain. They are the seed of the serpent. They're excluded from Adam's bloodline. But they, Christ said, let both grow together until the time of the end. And so he would preserve the seed of the serpent through the flood. And Naamah was the wife, and Ham was the son that was born to Noah from her. And so, he would be 50% serpent seed because she was serpent seed of the children of Cain. But when he looked upon the nakedness of his father and he had sexual relations with his mother, then, his children were predominantly the bloodline, 3/4 more of the seed of the serpent. And so that's how the serpent seed was preserved through the flood, and how it has continuance through Canaan. And Canaan was the one that usurped the birthright from Abraham, and stole it from the children of Shem, the son of Noah. And Abraham was given that promise that they would go into the land and take back that land from Canaan, who had stole it from Shem. And so that, again, is a part of the story that not a lot of people know about. But let's continue, brother. We got just one more segment, really.
Okay, it's interesting how when you talk about that, how if anybody does that research on the three sons of Noah, how Ham was always kind of the one that was like the black sheep and kind of went his own negative way. You can kind of good inkling why and what might have been part of his early destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Especially his mother. I think his mother did turn kind of to the dark side too after the flood. Okay, so going back, Master Mayhem, I found a little bit about it. I found that it says that it's a title assumed first by Cain and later by his descendant Lamech. The title indicates that Cain and Lamech were each the, quote, master of a, quote, great secret by which they covenanted with Satan to kill for personal gain. So, interesting thought. I mean, obviously, Lamech was like the latter-day Cain as far as prestige and how the people look up to him. Okay, as we get back into what we were talking about before the flood, and we talked about music. Of course, there's the one more element that we have is the great ritual, the great rite, which is actually the sexual practice. Because again, if you think about a massive partying, etc., what's the other element that people start to do and think about, and etc., with all of this other earthly things going on? And that's how it was back then too. So we have another part of that entering in here, and part of this great parallel between those early carnival-like, orgy-like days of Cain and days of Noah that we do today. I think we had the second book of Adam and Eve, and basically we talked about when they were playing the musical instruments. We have in the second book of Adam and Eve, we have Satan came into them so that from among them were heard beautiful and sweet sounds that ravished the heart. Then he gathered company, and he is Jubal again, the one who actually started making these instruments. Then he gathered companies upon companies to play on them, and when they played, it pleased well with the children of Cain, who inflamed themselves with sin amongst themselves, and burnt as with fire, while Satan inflamed their hearts one with another, and increased lust among them. So obviously, there was that extra element that started going. And if you study paganism and you understand what the great rite is, that is their great ritual. The top ritual is the sexual practice. So there you go. And
not just the sexual practice, but the abomination of the practice of sex,
right,
in so many odd ways and manners, including pedophilia and bestiality. But Satan knows that sex is his way to lure humanity astray from the Most High. I mean, because it caused his own downfall. It caused the angels to fall, to leave their place of habitation. It caused Adam and Eve to fall. It causes humanity to fall, because a lot of times people will hold sacred themselves and to be as holy as they can, except for when it comes to sex and to being able to indulge in it. That, a lot of pastors and preachers and ministers and people of God, they will be holy in every way, but when it comes to sex, they allow themselves to go into places and spaces and experiences they otherwise would not. And so sex, and that's why we see among the elites, the Illuminati, that sexual iconography is celebrated. The phallic symbol, the Christmas tree, the obelisk, it's the worship of the penis and the phallic, and the egg and the ova and all those things, the lingam. These again are all connected to what occurred in the garden, because they're celebrating even the tree, which the worship of the tree, it's connected to the heritage and the bloodline and the family line and what occurred in the garden with the birth of the serpent, the celebration of the beguilement of Eve, the birth of Cain, and as the son of the serpent. All that is celebrated amongst the elite. And so you have to understand that if you want to really know about what's going on, even with Christmas trees, and why we're not supposed to, if you're going to celebrate Christmas, it's a pagan ceremony. And having a Christmas tree in your house is actually, the celebration of the sexual iconography and its representation of a phallus. And so, you got to understand these things.
Yeah, I mean, it's so. Again, paganism, from its very name, is basically, if you really get into a very simple definition, it's anything that's not of God or anything that does not point towards God, and it makes total sense that way. Because when you become and look at a pagan religion, you're not looking at the God of the Bible. You're looking for anything around the earth or elemental spirits or anything that would give you more of an enlightenment feeling. What you said, Zen, was exactly spot on when they're talking about early Genesis and celebration. And that's exactly what so many of these things that we take for granted today and do and look at are. Like you said, you see these the Washington Monument, you see all these different obelisks. They're phallic symbols, and that is a pagan celebration of what happened to Eve in the garden. That fornication between her and the serpent took place, and not just through that, but through the serpent's seductive words, he managed to assuage her, take her away from the preaching of God, and that is what they think was the greatest thing in this world, in this present. That's why they celebrate it so much. That's why sex is at the top of their list for ritual, is because they attempting to apply a slap in the face to God himself, thinking that way. What was the thing that would upset God the most in his great, very good existence that he had with Adam and Eve in the garden? It would be this particular act and these particular seductive words, because again. It's just like, that's what these people nowadays, they celebrate. They celebrate the thoughts that, this particular act and this conversation actually freed Eve. It didn't cause her to death. It freed her from an oppressive God. It freed her. It allowed her to be, and her humanity to just fly like a dove, fly like an eagle. That's
to be like a god, to know good and evil,
like a god herself. And that's exactly what the serpent promised her, in a way, when he said that.
And I'm so glad you brought this point up, because this is also very, very important. Because the Freemasons, the Luciferians, they celebrate the freedom that came with the liberation of what they believe was humanity from the bondage of living under the Most High. And they celebrate the sexual liberation and the fall of humanity, and they call it, that Satan delivered the fire to humanity, gave us, he was the lightbringer, he was Prometheus that gave up his life to almost like an abomination of Christ. He gave up his life in order that we could have and learn through the duality of good and evil, that we could be sexually liberated here, and that we could indulge in all the fantasies and the pleasures of this world. They celebrate that. They don't see it as a fall. They don't teach it to be as part of the fall of humanity, or that it was a bad thing, or they celebrate it as being a good thing. And so it's important to understand that as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Okay, let's get into a little bit more here while we have time. Okay, and another parallel that we show from then to today that we have found in the second book of Adam and Eve, we talked about Jubal and Tubal-cain again, and basically, let's see here, Satan. Actually, that points actually at Satan or the serpent actually helping teach these two individuals to push, as I was saying earlier, to bring forth strong drink out of corn, and thus they would used to bring together companies upon companies in drink houses, and they brought into their hands all manner of fruits and flowers, and they drank together, and when they were drunk, hatred and murder increased among them. One man used violence against another to teach him evil. So, you know, and then it got so bad, the same book says, and they no longer knew what was iniquity, which is an interesting phrase, because if you think about it, that's what we do today. We think, okay, well, is it really bad? What's sin anymore? I mean, as long as I think about it. And I agree totally with what you were saying earlier, because that's the great battle that we have. It's the ways of God, what God wants for us, or is it's humanism? Is this man's own humanity, their own interpretation of what we see in this world around us? What is the way to go? Which way is the way that is the correct way? And we see that way back, and even in Judges, where man did what was right in his own mind. You know, so that has always been the problem, always since even day one with the serpent. You know, this is what we think is right, and whatever you think is right is right.
Also, remember that it tells us that Satan originally rebelled because iniquity was found within him, and this was something new amongst the angels. There was not previous to him iniquity, you know, and that iniquity is what led to rebellion against the Most High, and that he even led astray 1/3 of the angels. He swept 1/3 of the stars with his tail. And so, you know, alluding to iniquity developing and growing in humanity, that also shows that, you know, people are being led astray to become and to fall into sin, in much the same way that the angels, when they left their place of habitation, when Satan and the angels rebelled against the Most High, they, as it says in Psalms 82, they were to die the death of a man. They were placed under the authority of death. And so they, you know, will, and it tells us that at the end of the millennial age, they will go through the second death. They will be annihilated, destroyed as if that it had never been. And so there's going to be consequence for their actions.
That's cool. Is that Psalms 82 you said? That's a good verse.
Yeah, Psalms 82. Yeah, it's a great verse because it speaks about the counsel of the mighty, and then it talks about Satan as one of the princes, and that during the time when the war in heaven was occurring and the earth was destroyed, that he would then be placed under the authority of death. He would have to die the death of a man. That, you know, the earth was out of, you know, everything was destroyed and wiped out and made without form and void. It alludes to that in that particular passage.
Okay, the last one, I think you might have took my thunder already about Namoth.
Sorry.
That's okay. I really liked hearing it out of your voice, because it echoed pretty much the same thing I was going to say. But yeah, she was one of the last ones that we hear about in this early part of Genesis here. But again, we don't hear much about her except that she had, you know, a couple children, and we don't actually hear that she did, you know, become a wife of Noah, but there's so much extra biblical that does talk about that, right?
Yes.
So it's almost obvious that she had more of a part than just that part in the Bible. But one thing I wanted to get into again, which is it's a little bit of a proof of what Zen and I have been talking about this whole time, is that, you know, I think I might have mentioned this before, but we talked about how some verses in the Bible actually, you know, they mention a little bit, but you don't know exactly what it all means. And until you actually do some research outside, and Lamech is a perfect example. That verse you were talking about, how he was talking about hurting, he's going to his wives, and he said he'd slain one man for his ignorance, and that whole verse in the Bible, that always stuck out to me, because you read it, if you read it just what the Bible says, you say, okay, he's upset, he went to his wives, he said he hurt one man for one reason, and he hurt and killed one man for his reason. He killed another one for another reason. And that's all the Bible says. And again, it always strikes me as interesting that why the Bible would even put that in there, or why that would be in there if it didn't have some kind of significance. But again, we have to do our own little research here. And you gave us a good possible reasoning. Another one I found was, and I don't know if you agree with me on this one, but is that actually he killed Cain, who was coming to see him.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty popular one. And that would make a lot of sense, because again, Cain was under the curse of God that he must live out his life for 7 generations, and Lamech was in the 7th generation.
Right.
And that's why
it also tells us in the scriptures that you reap what you sow, and those who live by the sword will die by the sword. And so with Cain killing Abel, what happened? He was given a reprieve for 7 generations. And then in the 7th generation, according to the book of Jasher, Lamech was out hunting with his grandson Tubal-cain, and he was blind, but he was told, and Tubal-cain did not recognize his patriarch Cain, because it said that he had a horn and looked like an animal, like a beast of some sort. And so when he told Lamech to shoot and kill, when Lamech went up and felt the creature, he realized that this was Cain, and that he had killed his great whatever grandfather or whatever he was at that time, being 10 generations or 7 generations, and that then he, being distressed, clapped his hands together so in such a distressful way that he accidentally killed Tubal-cain, and so the prophecy of that, according to scripture, was fulfilled, and he was left out there because he didn't know which way to go. And then the wives, Ada and Zillah, went looking for them and found him, and found that he had not only killed Cain but also Tubal-cain. And that's when he also, in a remorseful way, spoke about how the 70 generations that he would be cursed because he killed not only Cain but also Tubal-cain.
Yeah, and that's Zillah's son. I mean, and that makes so much more sense, because when if you look at it with that extra information, you think, oh, okay, now I see why the Bible dictates that was so important.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because it also it shows us prophetically the consequences of our actions, and especially for the children of Cain, because they became murderers. They were liars, deceivers. They were the ones that set up weights and measures. They established the brothels, the taverns, the way stations where people could get rest while they were traveling. They could indulge in music and wine and
prostitution,
everything else. Prostitution, yeah, absolutely. So that was all established by the children of Cain, and so we know that that the serpent is and had led and influenced that particular bloodline, and still does. That the elites of the world today are still guided by and influenced by the principalities, the ruler of darkness, the eye at the top of the Illuminati pyramid, the eye of Ra. So all this is still going on. Yeah, the all-seeing eye.
Yeah, that's. I think we talked about that too, but I think we could do a little Q&A if you want, Zen, right? If anybody has any questions while we're doing. But I will continue on, but yeah, that all-seeing eye again seems like another parallel then to today, because you think about back then. From what the research that I found, Horus and it's more of a title, okay? And again, it's Egyptian, I understand that, but it's the title of a son, and I believe like a son of somebody, okay? And I believe that the all-seeing eye of Horus was basically way back in the ancient parallel. Was actually Cain, the all-seeing eye of Cain, and I believe that
interesting.
Yeah, and one of the reasons the Egyptians celebrated that and such, it's a power symbol from the elite, from the government, and they had more of an all-seeing eye spiritually on people, and they would work their magic with more of a supernatural way of seeing into people's and understanding people, the way they think and etc. by spiritual means. More what I don't know if you call it telepathic or whatever, but you think about that, because that was what they would be bragging on, that they would have the godlike powers of seeing and understanding people and knowing their hearts and knowing which way they go and understanding, if they're going to follow God or not. They probably had East Germany, they had a lot of people that would tell on other people, and they would watch people back then to see which way they go. And of course, that's you got to look at the results. You had 8 righteous people near the end there before the flood. That was it. Everybody else or most people just fell. But you got it today. You've got the governments, and you got so many people now. They have their own little all-seeing eye above. You look at the back of your dollar bill and you say, okay, does that mean something? Is that why? Some reason why they put that on there? I mean, you've got surveillance all over the place today, where they've got facial recognition. You've got everything on your phone. So, I mean, you have the all-seeing eye again today. It's the same parallel.
Yes,
it's just
exactly.
It's more,
Very
it's
point.
more literal now. It's not just spiritual and not just trying to use anything from the supernatural. It's using technology.
Yes,
which is interesting.
Want to make one other comment before I forgot this parallel as well, is that how they hide everything in plain sight, and how they're laughing at the masses for believing in fairy tales and not understanding the real truth of certain matters, just like the way that they hide on the flag of the United Nations the true orientation of the continents of the earth, and
the looks, the
azimuth and equidistant projection map. But anyways, the reason I say that is because what do they tell everybody, as far as what happened in the garden? They say that Eve ate an apple, that she ate this fruit, and that this fruit is the reason humanity was cast out of paradise. And so they're again laughing at everybody, and they have everybody celebrating Christmas, believing that Christ was born in the middle of winter, during what is near the winter solstice, which is one of the 4 days that the pagans celebrate. That are pagan celebrations, and that. And they also have everybody putting Christmas trees in their houses, decorating these phallic symbols with all these, stars and ornaments and presents, and doing all that. And people have no idea. And the elites are just laughing. It's a mockery of things that should be pure, and the real holy days, the Levitical feast days that we were appointed and directed to celebrate the real feasts of the Lord, the real festivals of the Most High. And they turned everything upside down and have us, again, decorating these huge phallic symbols in our houses, and people don't have any idea what they're doing or what they're involved in. And it's just laughable. And they have all the kids helping decorate and celebrate, and they put all the presents under this giant phallic symbol, and it's just so funny, and yet nobody understands. They don't get it at all.
Yeah. Yeah,
But anyways,
I have
go
an
ahead,
older
brother.
website. It's called mystery-babylon.org. It's mystery-babylon.org. Until I get my new one done and ready to go. That one has 3 sections on near the bottom there. If you look on the front page, you'll be able to see it. Mystery-babylon.org. You'll be able to see a little section on Christmas, a little section on Easter, and a little section on Halloween. And I added those a while ago, but they're all still relevant. I really like the information that I was able to find and put in there, because it talks a lot exactly like what you talk about, how these are all actually pagan holidays, and they're all made to look innocent today. And a lot of people almost feel guilty about, us talking about that and saying, well, you know what? I mean, I've always done it this way, and it's Christian. It's got some Christian elements. I mean, and this, or, okay, I understand that, but we have to be observant about what we're doing and what we're really adoring and looking at, and the mannerisms and the functions that we're following here.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. Especially look at how much time and effort people give to Christmas. I mean, they start putting their decorations up after Thanksgiving, and then it's all commercialized now. People will literally go into debt to buy their kids toys they can't afford, and then spend the rest of the year paying off that debt. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
and yet that's the tradition. Oh, as long as my kids get have a good Christmas and they get all the toys that they want, and then the whole thing of Santa and the elves and Santa. When you look at the origins of Santa, I mean, even the 5 letters tell you who and what it's associated to.
Yeah,
I
what
mean,
do you think?
really, it's like,
go ahead.
well, elves, like the little people, and because the
fairy,
elves are the
demons.
fairy people. They're demonic, and so even not just with that, but think about the Christian churches celebrate Halloween. I mean, if you're gonna celebrate Halloween, I think you're gonna be you have to be responsible for what you're doing and what you're involving yourselves in, because Halloween is a satanic celebration, and they sacrifice young innocent children on that day. They want to sacrifice Christians on that day, and you as a Christian are going to celebrate it just because you want your kids to bob for apples and to dress up like ghouls and specters and zombies and things of that nature and go and trick or treat. I mean, you're going to be held accountable whether you know this or not. And it's not that difficult to look it up to find out the truth, because again, mature Christians, you're going to be held accountable for what you do, what you celebrate, the holy days you choose to practice, the rituals you're involved in. And so whether you think, oh, it's okay, I'm just doing it for the kids, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like a Scrooge, and I'm sure Zen doesn't want to sound like a Scrooge in this particular instance, but we're just both. I can't really
being honest.
We just want people to understand the origins and just kind of have a little watchful eye under the surface of what's going on. That's all. We're not trying to ruin any child's Christmas or anything like that. Everybody has to have something nice, but just gonna get a little feel of where these things come from and why you put a tree in your living room. You know, I mean, nowhere in the Bible. Actually, it says in the Bible, I think, you know, Zen, you probably know
Jeremiah
this,
10. Yeah.
There you go, Jeremiah 10. And I mean, you should read that. You know, it says something in the regards.
It chastises.
Right. Do not put a tree in the garden because or in your living room, because it's something of the pagan level.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I said, it's a symbol of the phallus, and people decorating it. Again, it's connected to the fall of humanity, the beguilement of Eve, the seduction of the innocent. You know, the sexualization of humanity are falling into mortal form.
Yeah, the Phallic,
being placed under the authority of death. Exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing that helped get us there. That's how wonderful.
Exactly. That's right.
And another thing is,
which is why they celebrate it. You know.
Yeah, they celebrate it, and then of course, you have the red and the green, which is, I guess, the green is
and
the
immortality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might even trace back to I don't know. I've heard talk of it tracing back to Nimrod, or Tammuz, where you know they were killed, and then you got the blood for the actual representation of death, but then you have the green as they're coming back to life or reincarnating into a god, and there you go. You've got the red and the green. That is not any symbol of Jesus anywhere. That's
right,
sure.
Right, exactly. Now, you know, I think that honoring Christ on Christmas, as long as I think any day of remembrance where people in memorial think about the Messiah and, you know, acknowledge that, but still you have to know the origins of what you're involved in.
Right.
And so Christmas has nothing to do with the birth of the Messiah. He was born on Yom Teruah, September 1st, the same day that Adam and Eve were banished from paradise. He came here to rectify the fall. His life and role and mission and embodiment has nothing to do with sex. It's actually everything against that, because he wants us to return to our immortal, bright nature. He wants us to return to a glorified form. And salvation through him is that. It is a return to our first estate.
And that is the true, in my research, I found that is the true image of God. It's not that we're men or women and we have this image. It's that bright countenance of an angelic countenance. That is the original image. So yeah, that's another thing I've researched and found out. Just be careful of when you hear everybody say, "Oh, we're made in the image of God." No, that is the original image, what they're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are in a fallen form now.
Right.
Exactly. That's right. Because God is immortal, and that's what he wants for us. The angels are immortal. You know, they're closer to the true representation, the true image of the Most High than we are, because we're now in mortal form, in flesh form.
Right. And when you hear of, especially when you do the research in the ancients, you'll hear about angels having or their descendants, their half-human descendants, have a shining countenance. Like Cain even was said to have a shining countenance, is because he had angelic blood. Right. And when they were born way back in their most purest of forms, a lot of them had that semi-angelic countenance.
Yes. Very, very good points, brother. Oh my gosh, we're done. The end of the show is here, Brett. Oh my gosh.
I'm flying.
Yeah.
I had a great show. I really had a good time tonight.
Yeah, me too, brother. Be blessed, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple months.
Good night, all. Shalom.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you, and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.
On May 26 through 28, 2023, Sacred Word Revealed comes to Atlanta, Georgia.
Purpose to unveil esoteric controversies. Conflicts abound in this final generation.
After many millennia of deceptive propaganda replacing truth, that's why we must join together as a remnant to sharpen one another as iron sharpeneth iron.
To test all things and to declare together openly, the Messiah is Adonai.
Get your tickets now at sacredwordrevealed.com and join us for another exciting, rejuvenating, and challenging weekend of worship, fellowship, and discussion with the truth-seeking community.